Okay, great. So welcome to MASCellaneous, breaking the binary through visual storytelling. You've made it here on this wonderful Tuesday evening. There's a lot of other places you could be, and you chose to take time out and be here. So just want to appreciate that. My name is Kevin Seaman. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm an interdisciplinary artist and the artistic director of Diamond Wave. I'll tell you a little bit more about Diamond Wave in a second. And overall, I'm just so excited for tonight's Masculinity workshop with our special guest, Edgar-Arturo Camacho-González. Before we get started, however, oh, there's me, there's a picture of me. Before we get started, I want to walk us through a native land acknowledgement. Can I get a show of hands or like some thumbs up or affirmations through the chat of folks who have heard of native land acknowledgements before? Yes, okay, folks do know these, so that you know that these are really just a first step to us acknowledging a really difficult past with Native Americans in this country, just acknowledging the land that we're on. So we're gonna go ahead and start with this, and then I'm gonna follow up with some other steps after that. Although we meet virtually, we would like to acknowledge that Diamond Wave is based in San Francisco, first known as Yelamu, and on the ancestral and unceded lands of the Ramaytush and Muwekma Ohlone people. We would like to pay our respects to the Ramaytush and Muwekma Ohlone elders past, present, and future that steward this land. If anybody wants more information about native land acknowledgements, I am going to put a link in the chat to the U.S. Department of Arts and Culture's #HonorNativeLand Guide. This is a guide that just tells you why we do native land acknowledgements, how you can write your own for events that you might be going to. The second resource I want to share with you is native-land.ca. This is both a website and an app where you can look up what native land you're on so that you can start learning the history of the people's lands that you occupy. And then lastly, as a second step, our native land acknowledgement is the first step. Our second step is to follow up with a financial donation. So for every Masculinity workshop and really every event that Diamond Wave does, we send a small amount of money to the Sagareyate Land Trust or other native-led initiatives to show financial support as a second step on top of a native land acknowledgement. Ooh, lots of education there, but I hope it was worth it if you didn't know it. So moving us right along, I want to tell you a little bit about Diamond Wave, the organization that's hosting this event. We are a San Francisco and Seattle-based queer arts organization. We make super fun queer arts events. And then we also do community-based consulting. Overall, our goal is to authentically support the growth and stability of our artists, arts workers, and communities. One of the ways that we do that is through this program, MASCellaneous, which is a creative workshop series exploring queer masculinities. The intent of these workshops is to create new masculine archetypes, shift existing queer masculine culture, and to create affinity among cis and trans men and masculine of center women and non-binary people. Ooh, so much of a mouthful. I think with all that said, Stefan, do you want to introduce yourself and walk us through a couple of group agreements today?
Yeah, I can do that. Hi, everyone. I'm Stefan McLeroy, he, him pronouns. I'm a writer and the managing director of Diamond Wave. And what we at Diamond Wave and in the Masculinity series like to do is to create an intentional space where everyone gets to feel centered and supported. What we've done to accomplish that is we've created some group agreements that we like to share with the Masculinity attendees. What you can do is, I think Kevin's about to copy and paste a link into the chat. We invite you to review these shared agreements to learn or remind yourself how we like to interact in this space together. For today, things that I'd like to kind of highlight that in our group agreements is both and, which is the idea that there is a multiplicity of truth in our world and that many times we must hold two or more truths in our heads simultaneously. And the second is passive participation, which is participation. People process information in different ways, and there is no right way to participate. Active listening is just as valuable as speaking in a conversation.
Thank you so much for that, Stefan.
Of course.
And Stefan, I know you're going to have to duck out before we end the workshop. So if I don't see you again, thank you for being here. And I love you. You're such a sweet person. Thank you.
Too, Kevin.
All right. Well, with that said, I'm going to introduce our special guest today. And that is to tell you that Edgar-Arturo Camacho-González uses they, he pronouns, is a queer, indigenous, Xicanx community activist, artist, and poet living in occupied Ohlone land in Vallejo, California. I originally met Edgar. It was actually during the pandemic, and it was weirdly through the Hewlett Foundation, who came recommended as a person that was that to work on a project where we were trying to find resources for artists and small arts organizations. So just feel really a lot of gratitude that that's how we got connected in this, time of crisis, and such a beautiful relationship got to come out of that. So I just can tell you, I have fallen in love with everything about Edgar-Arturo Camacho-González. Their optimism, I love their gorgeous paintings. I love their keen curatorial eye and how they show up and just exude passion for community, and just in general, how pleasant you are to be around. So please welcome everybody, Edgar-Arturo Camacho-González.
Thank you so much.
You've been here, but you're just officially here now.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. And the feelings are super mutual, Kevin. I love you.
Oh, thank you. Yes, it's like growing love affairs in our art and community. I think it's fantastic. I know that everyone's really excited to get to the drawing exercise that we're going to do today, but beforehand, I'm just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how you frame your creative work. I think you're a painter, but I know that you're also a bunch of other things. So what are all the different types of things that you do with your creative practice?
Yeah, of course. I think that for me, I identify as a storyteller, and I think that that's really important. And, for me, I've always been a creative queer kid, but I grew up in a conservative household, super religious. And I grew up in Napa, also super conservative and very racist. And so I went to college to kind of get away from my family and to kind of get away from the toxic masculinity and patriarchy within my family, but also the racism and all of the shit that was happening within my community. And in college, I went to Sac State. So I joined organizations that were so I joined MECHA, organizations that were supporting immigrant rights, queer rights. And that's really where I learned the power of image making. That's where I really learned. And for the first time, my creative skills were valued because I was making the protest signs. I was creating the flyers for the youth conferences and some of the protests and some of the events. And that's when I realized, holy crap, there is power in these stories, right? There's power in image making. And so I decided I wanted to become a storyteller, a visual storyteller, because I saw that power that, was never really valued growing up, because I was always encouraged to be a doctor or a lawyer or anything that was not artistic for multiple reasons, right? Because I come from an immigrant family. And so leaving everything behind for you to draw was just never in the cards. But also in my family, sports were valued because they were masculine, right? And the arts were not valued because they leaned feminine. And so it also contributed to this gender dysmorphia and just my struggles with gender. And so, that's kind of why I am so passionate about, painting. I'm so passionate about the arts because I believe that they are a tool in our toolbox that allows us to navigate this world and to explore our identities and to storytell and to reclaim your own story, right? No one knows your story better than you know your story. No one can tell your story better than you can tell your story. So it's so important that we tell our own stories, as a queer person of color, as an indigenous person living in a country that has historically taken action against my existence, reclaiming that story and living within my joy in and of itself is really revolutionary. And so that's kind of where I operate from. And
Yes. I am here for this TED Talk. I love it. Yes. And I know that we're going to touch on joy and gender journeys in just a second. But I think before we get into there, I want to share just a couple of samples and kind of talk about it and just, bounce back and forth. But I wanted to share these specific 2 portraits, which I feel like are just so gorgeous. I was just looking through your work and preparing for tonight's workshop. And these 2 specifically, I just love the gradients you use, the way that you use light. It's so sophisticated, nuanced, and detailed. And I'm just wondering if you could speak a little bit about your education and how you came to this place of being an amazing, talented painter. Where did you learn to paint?
I am a proud self-taught artist, y'all. I have worked hard. Hard. And, I'm proud of that journey. So I, did my undergrad in sociology. And so I didn't study art. I'm not classically trained. And I'm inspired by queer folks. I'm inspired by folks of color. I'm inspired by women. Femme folks is where I have felt at home most of my life. And that has also contributed to my own relationship with masculinity, which I'll talk about in a second. But, on the left, we have Medium, who's an Indigenous woman. I identify, or my process is very collaborative. I think that historically figurative painters have gotten away with painting subjects without consent. And so you get a lot of figurative painters who are painting folks from a male gaze or from a white gaze. And so, all of the folks that I paint, I collaborate with, and we talk about like, what is important in this story? Like, like, this is your story, and I'm going to help you share that story. What is important to you? And so that is how I collaborate. And Medium on the left, she is a poet. She also lives on occupied Ohlone land, and they shared a poem called Sol, Sun, that talks about coming into her identity as an Indigenous woman. And one of the lines in their poem is, remember that not everyone can hold the sun in their hands without burning. And so that really stuck out to me. And I was like, perfect. Let's paint you in your brown, beautiful skin in front of the sun without burning. And so that is how this painting came to be. And I'm, over time, I've tried to really oversaturate sometimes some of my skin tones, because I want to make it clear that like brown is beautiful, brown is powerful, especially because I didn't always feel that way about my own skin color. And Prisca on the right, she just released a book for brown girls with rough edges and tender hearts. And so one of also my sheroes, and super, super beautiful. And that the one on the right is a digital portrait, and then the one on the left is acrylic on canvas.
Oh, that's so great, Edgar. And I love to have just how you worked like the poeta into the hoop earring. There's just so many like little nuanced details and things that are going on, and all of the work that you put into it. And I want to kind of shift and think about all of the work that goes into the paintings. And I know how you work from photos a lot of times. And so I wanted to look at a couple of photos in relationship to your own gender journey. And so I hope you don't hate me, but I found kind of an older headshot of you on the left here, which I know you've actually created a painting from that photo specifically. And then this one on the right that feels a little bit more, I don't know, relaxed. It feels more Indigenous. It feels more feminine. And so I'm just wondering if you can take us through maybe of like, an overview of what's the gender journey that you've been on from the picture to the left to the one to the right to like where you are today.
It's been a long journey. What I will say is that my relationship to masculinity has changed. It's not the same that it was 10 years ago, and it's not the same that it will probably be in 10 years. It's very fluid, but I've become much more comfortable. I think that growing up in a household with mostly men, mostly boys, I took in a lot of the toxicity, just even coming from like a very conservative family. And so, I remember, being called fag and being called queer in a derogatory way, in high school, and really doing my very best to present as masculine as possible, because masculine would be safe, right? Like I remember being afraid to wear dangly earrings or even having my ear pierced. I remember in high school, I would get teased for having brows that were too thin. And so anything that I could do to mimic the other mask folks in my life so that I would not be picked on or bullied, that's what I would do, right? And so I was very aware when I would sit, when I would walk in public, of my posture and how I would try and carry myself. And it's really sad to think about, but it was my reality, and I think that this picture is that in a leather jacket and, trying to just be mask, and that was always something that was at the back of my mind. How do I present as mask as possible? Not just because of heteronormative society and social constructs, but also within queer culture. Mask is desirable. Mask is sexy. Mask is what I thought I wanted in a relationship at the time. And so, coming into the picture on the right, this is me, this is who I am, this is queer, this is brown, this is indigenous, this is, I no longer give up, and I've come kind of into myself. And it's taken a lifetime of needing to reframe some of those negative things, all of the attacks that have been thrown at me. And I think that art has been part of that healing process, right? Because with art, I can spend the time that I need to spend with myself to reframe some of those negative things and tell myself that, you are not defined by the toxic masculinity, the pain, the trauma, but rather look at you now, And so I think that that's what these two pictures represent.
I feel like these two pictures with this gender journey are also really great in relationship to these two pictures, which I feel like they feel very moving away from the leather jacket, which feels very stereotypical masculine conformity, to these two, which feel like, I feel like the one on the left feels a lot more feminine and delicate. We've got the big earring, we've got the cloth there, but the one on the right still doesn't feel like the same kind of tension with the masculinity that I see in some of the other pictures. So maybe just spend a moment talking about these two in relationship to your gender journey as well.
Yeah. So they're called Bird of Paradise and Hummingbird in Paradise, the femme and the mask. And, like I had mentioned before, my relationship to masculinity at this point is very fluid. And this was a diptych that I created to try and really share that, it's a spectrum and it moves. Sometimes I'm femme and sometimes I'm mask. And sometimes it's fluid. I could be both, right? And that sometimes I want to be seen as mask and sometimes I want to be seen as femme, and that is okay. And so on the left, these are acrylic on canvas. For someone who just asked, I'm sorry, I didn't catch who that was. I have the thinner harness versus the one on the right is the thicker harness. And, I have the indigenous huipil, over my body in the femme. That is really talking to the exploration of presentation and how I want to present. And so it's a balance between my mask energy and my femme energy. And really the intention behind these pieces were to allow myself and to give myself permission to be both, and for them to serve as an invitation for folks who connect with the pieces that gives themselves the permission to explore and to really, be who they want to be who they are.
Thank you so much for all of that perspective. Got one more question for you before we get into our exercise. And that's really just talk about, again, coming back to this idea of joy, which again, I feel like you embody so much. Most of your work with its bright colors and saturated tones, I feel like really embody this sense of joy, whether it's in relationship to race or gender or sexuality, or just finding the joy in a moment. So I wanted to look at these two pictures. We've got one, and these are, I think, both acrylic on canvas as well.
Yeah, these are both acrylic on canvas.
Yeah. Yeah, but just speak to the joy that you see in these pieces. I have my ideas about it, but I want to hear your voice on it.
Definitely. I mean, the one on the left, they are a friend. Their name is Luis. And this piece I just really fell in love with because it gave me permission to explore some of my own gender identity. And so this was a really important piece just for me to paint because it really was a piece that allowed me to give myself permission to live from that center of joy. Like I'd mentioned before, I think, with the dismantling of the own patriarchy internally that I've navigated, as well as the internalized racism and some of the social constructs, I think that there's absolute validity in like the systems of patriarchy, the systems of oppression, the racism, and like this art that comes from a place of anger, which I have created a ton of in my life and love this kind of work. So that, no shade towards that kind of work, but also I think about like the healing journey that I'm on with myself, the healing journey that I'm on with my family and with my community. And I think about like, what would it have been like growing up if my family saw beautiful, powerful representations of queer folks and folks of color living, thriving, being successful, living in joy? Like, what would that have done to the healing journey that I have with them? What would that have done to the healing journey that I have with myself? And so, finding that balance for me is so, so important. And so now I try and operate from the center of joy, because like I'd mentioned before, in a country and in a space that continues to attack my existence, and many of you may be able to relate to this, like living and thriving and being joyous in and of itself is revolutionary. And so that is powerful. And the piece on the right is also, even though when I painted this piece, it came from a place of pain, it's really, I painted it in a way where I felt like this is who I am, cross-legged, in a pose that I'm no longer conscious about, like whether I'm sitting in a masculine way, in the center of this field of cacti within my culture, feeling powerful, brilliant, beautiful under the golden moon, and again, giving myself permission to just exist.
Oh, I love that. And it just feels like, again, it doesn't feel like forced joy. It just feels like embodied joy. And I just love that so much about your work, Edgar-Arturo. Let's segue into, actually, I think we wanted to talk about one more painting before we segue, which was this nude plant daddy picture. Can you just talk a little bit about this and what this painting means to you?
Yeah, I'll be quick about this piece. This is one of my most recent pieces. It's also acrylic on canvas. And this is about me living in my body fully nude, right? With the plants, coming into my indigenous identity. Through colonization, we have, and I'll speak, for my experience, I feel like there's been an attempt to sever the relationship that I have with my land, with the earth. And so being around these plantitas, these plants, has really taught me a lot about myself. And, especially that like I am resilient and strong, and that I am rooted in my beautiful brown skin, and that this is where I am, and I'm ready to take control of my own narrative and share it with the world. And I will no longer let someone else share my narrative for me. Like, this is me, and I get to tell you.
I love that. And I love that you're claiming that. You're like, I'm not waiting for anybody to give me permission. I am taking space for myself to tell these stories.
Thank you. It hasn't always been that way. And that's kind of where I'm trying to be now. Yeah.
If folks that are watching or participating today that aren't there yet, could you recommend a super small first step towards starting to embody that space?
Yeah. I mean, I honestly, the mirror that's right behind me, if you follow me on social media, you'll see my stories. I do a daily affirmation in the mirror. I take a picture every morning after I get dressed in this mirror, and I give myself an affirmation. I give myself permission to exist. I give myself permission to navigate my day and whatever that looks like. And so just getting used to affirming your existence and giving yourself permission to live, thrive, be joyous, I think is a great first step. Y'all are badass. Like, just, affirmations, daily affirmations.
Thank you for that. I think I recently shaved and I'm getting used to my face, and I feel like I'll go back into like drag face, which is when I usually shave, which I'm doing like a lot of like, like things. And then I'm like, why am I not just looking at myself and smiling in the mirror, where just have a moment of joy and affirmation. So I feel like I've been similarly trying to just remind myself of those kind of daily things as well. So thank you. Before we get into our exercise, I want to make sure that we're engaging all the folks that are in the room with us. So I'm hoping that we might be able to do just a short round of introductions. I know that most folks are off camera today. So if you want to, feel free to share in the chat. If you don't want to share vocally, but there's some things that I would just love to know from people. And so there are 4 different things that I would love to know, which is, what's your name? What are your pronouns? Where are you joining from? And that could be a city or a neighborhood. And on what native land, if you'd like to share, we'd love to hear that as well. If you need some help looking that up, just scroll back up to some of those links or chat me and I can help you figure that out. And then the last thing is, what color are you feeling today? So I can go ahead and start that verbally, and then feel free, if you'd like to do that in the chat, feel free to do that as well. So I can say that my name is Kevin, I use they, them pronouns. I'm joining from San Francisco, otherwise known as Yalamu and Mwekma and Ramaytush Ohlone territory. And today I'm feeling this like tealish color. I don't know if you can tell, but I got a little bit on my eyes as well, but just like a nice light teal, seafoam, final answer. Edgar, I'll kick it over to you for an intro.
My name is Edgar-Arturo, pronouns they, he. I'm calling in from Lishan, Ohlone, Ohlone lands in Vallejo, California. And I am feeling orange. Orange is a burst of energy. I'm feeling excited, and I'm just really excited to be here with y'all. So orange is my color today. And I will.
Does anybody else want to? Yeah, if you want to go ahead and feel free to pop your mic on to introduce yourself. And I've got a couple of people in the chat here as well.
I'll introduce myself. My name is Dominic. My pronouns are they, them. I'm in Brooklyn, which I believe is Lenape and Canarsie lands. And my color, I want to say maybe metallic, gold, bronze, that kind of color.
I'm feeling all the warmth and all the shiny, Dominic. We're feeling it.
Can I go next?
Yeah, go ahead, Enzo.
Cool. Thanks, y'all. My name is Enzo. My pronouns are they, them. I currently am residing on Ohlone land, and I am feeling violet today.
Violet, not violent, right? Anybody else want to share next?
I'm Alan Ratliff. My pronouns are he, him. I'm on Ohlone, Mwekma, Ramaytush land, also known as San Francisco. And I'm feeling magenta, just because it's fun to say.
I'll go. Sorry, I'm Jeff. My pronouns are he, him. I am calling in from Emeryville, which is Ohlone land. And I'm feeling indigo with little sprinkles of yellow.
Nice color combo, Jeff. Good one. I also want to call out in the chat, we heard from Armando, who uses he, him pronouns, joining from Los Angeles, Boyle Heights. He is feeling cerulean blue, as well as Matthias, who is joining from he, him pronouns, who is joining from Seattle, coastal Salish land, feeling bluish purple today and just vibing. I like vibing. I'm loving it. And then Jesus uses he, him on Chumash land in Santa Barbara and feeling forest green. So we got a lot of different geographies, a lot of different colors for us today. With that said, Edgar-Arturo, are you ready to draw with us? Are we ready for it?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
So as we draw today, y'all, I just really want to invite yourselves to give yourselves permission to create today. You know, today is about a process. I'm going to be sharing with you like how to break down a face, like how to create a composition of a face. I would love it if you all would take a look at your own face and give yourself affirmations as you're drawing today. Remember that this is about the process, and this is not about nailing your likeness in one session, but it's about the journey. So I'm going to go ahead and ask Kevin to please pin this other camera. Let me turn it on. It looks just white now, but it won't be. And I'm going to turn this camera off just so that you don't see the top of my head. But we're going to shift right over to this camera here. So what we're going to do is we are going to draw a face. I'm going to share some tips for how to make a face more masculine, more feminine. And as I share today, remember that this is about breaking down social constructs of gender, but also that folks have the ability to be able to see themselves the way that they want to be seen. And so it's powerful to be able to use these skills to share and tell stories. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw a circle as close to a perfect circle as you can. Remember, it's okay to make mistakes. Just like that. We're also going to play some music that will help to get us in the zone here. We're just going to gently draw this circle.
And it doesn't have to be a perfect circle, right? It's a circle-ish.
Circle-ish, yeah. And so I'll just give everyone a second to draw that circle before we flip that circle in half both ways. And this is
How's everybody doing? Are we doing good? Are we doing good? We got it.
And this is how I start all of my figures. This is how I start my self-portraits. This is how I start my illustration work. And what we're going to do is we're going to extend lines from both sides of our circles, and we're going to point them towards the center. Just like this. Remember, we're just drawing it lightly because we'll be erasing some of these lines in just a second. From this center line, we're going to do a second line underneath. And we want there to be about an inch or so, depending on how big you created your circle. And so these lines are going to be our eye lines. This bottom line is going to be where the center of our eye lies. So in the center of this side, this quadrant here, and in the center of this one here, that's where our eyes will go. So we're going to go ahead and create our eyes. And think about, as you create your eyes, Do you want the eyes of your person to be round? Do you want them to be more almond shaped? Do you want them to be smaller? Do you want them to be larger?
And what might be some different things that we would think about when we're thinking about that shape of, if we wanted a more masculine eye, what might we draw? If we wanted a more feminine eye, what might we draw?
Yeah, so the shape of the eye is not necessarily what's going to define whether it looks a little bit more masculine, but some of the things that we'll be doing to the eye will. And so actually, since you're bringing it up, what we'll do is the top lid will always, for both masculine and feminine eyes, will both be darker than the bottom lid. So we want to make sure that we make this top portion of the eye thicker, regardless of whether we want the eye to look masculine or feminine. However, for masculine eyes, we want to just leave it a thick line, whereas for feminine eyes, we can create lashes that go from the corners of the eye upward if we wanted the eye to look a little bit more feminine. We would also add lashes on the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and keep my eyes more masculine today, so I'm just going to leave them without lashes. But you can do it. You can go ahead and make your eye look however you would like it to look. I'm going to go ahead and draw a circle in the center of my eye. This is going to be the iris of the eye. And I'm going to draw another circle in the center. It's going to be the pupil. Remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. Inside of the circle in the center, I'm going to draw another circle towards the top. This one's going to be smaller, and this is going to be the highlight in the eye. And I'm going to make the inner circle dark, because this is the pupil of the eye, the darkest part of the eye.
Before we keep going, does anybody have any questions so far about what we're drawing? How is everybody doing?
Remember, this is a process. It doesn't have to look exactly like mine. And this is just so that you become familiar with how to draw a face. So that maybe one of your affirmations, to get back to reference one of the questions that Kevin had asked earlier, like, what's one thing that you can do if you're on this journey of allowing yourself and giving yourself permission to explore your gender identity, is that you explore your face a little bit, that you draw, you storytell through visual storytelling. So this line that we created right above, that's going to be our brow line. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a brow. Generally, a thicker brow, a bushier brow tends to be more masculine. A thinner brow tends to be more feminine. So you can go ahead and create a more masculine brow, or you can create a more feminine brow. And as I'm sharing what makes brows masculine or feminine, or eyes, or any of these parts, remember that these are all based on social constructs, and that there's not really one way to be masculine or feminine, right? There's no right way to be masculine. There's no wrong way to be feminine. And so we have our brows. So I'll give you just a second to draw your brows. And we can shade in the iris of the eye. This is not going to be as dark as our pupil. So we just want to gingerly fill that in with a lighter tone. It's okay if your brows don't match exactly. Someone said to me once that they're sisters, not twins.
That is what I do all the time when you do drag, because they will never match up exactly.
So we'll just give you a second. And we're also going to put in the crease of the eye, right above our eye here. So the way that we're breaking down the face is just a really, really easy way to get your proportions done correctly. And then you can make adjustments as you go. So the bottom of our circle here, this is going to be our nose line. And your nose, nostrils should come down the edge of your eyes here. You don't have to make these lines for yourself, but I'm going to make them on my drawing so you can see what I'm talking about. And so we're just going to do a slight curve right along the edge of this circle. It's going to go up and around for the nostril. It's also going to go up and around for the nostril. And for noses, generally, a thicker nose or a wider nose tends to be more masculine than a thinner nose. But again, remember that these are actually based on social constructs of beauty, as well as Eurocentric notions of beauty, because we know that different cultures have wider set noses for both masc and femme folks. And so when we think about constructing a face, it often comes from European Eurocentric notions of beauty. And so I want you to keep that in mind. It's important for us to dismantle these notions, right? And so the nostril will come down and around. Perfect. Give me just a second to create that nose. And before we move on to the lips, we're going to start to create some dimension and some depth. It's going to help us chisel our face a little bit. For both masc and femme faces, this portion, it becomes a triangle here. This gets shaded in, and that's the crease in the nose here. And that's going to help define our nose. So I'll give folks just a second to shade this kind of triangle shape here. And as you're working, remember to take a deep breath, to hold it and release. If you're new to drawing or new to being creative in this way, know that it may feel a little bit frustrating. Validate those feelings, and I invite you to keep moving forward. We're going to draw a faint line that connects the top of the nostrils, and we're just going to fill this in. We're going to fill everything under that line. That's going to be in shadow. For masculine features, chiseled lines, very linear geometric lines are very common. So you'll see this arrow that points downward, this tends to be more pronounced, and this becomes the top of the lip. So what we're going to do for the lip, if you wanted to create this masculine feature, you would just create this arrow pointing downward from the center of your nose. If you're wanting to create a more femme featured face, you can omit that. And then we're going to create an elongated M shape. This M shape, and you don't have to draw these lines, I'm drawing them for you so you can see, should extend to the center of your eye. As a guide. And we're going to go ahead and connect this elongated line. And as you're drawing, think about your own features. Tell yourself you are beautiful, that your eyes are beautiful, that your lips are beautiful, that your nose is beautiful, especially if it's a feature that you have historically maybe struggled with. I encourage you to reframe that for yourself. We're also going to shade in this lip. If you look into a mirror or if you look at yourself on the Zoom camera, you'll notice the top lip will be a little bit darker than the bottom lip. And that is because the top lip falls back, and anything that falls back tends to be in shadow. Anything that falls forward tends to be in light. And so our bottom lip will not be shaded. Our bottom lip will come forward. I'll give you just a second. Take a deep breath, hold it, and release. The bottom lip will create a shadow right underneath it. So we're going to just draw a tiny shadow right underneath this bottom lip. And this is where we're going to start to define the face. Do you have a rounder face? Are you drawing a thinner face? In terms of masculine and feminine, a more masculine face will have lines that are more chiseled and geometric. So they will have a chisel versus a face that's a little bit more feminine will have less edges and will be rounder. So you will get to decide which kind of a face, what feature you would like to give your face. Is your person on the heavier side? Is your person a little thinner? How round is the face? Those are things that you get to decide. So I'll give you just a moment to create the shape of your face. Is your face longer? Is it shorter? I'll give you just a moment as you enjoy. It's Anatomy Drawing 101 class. The ears of our face, the top of our ear will touch the top of our brow line, which is this line that we had initially created. So it'll go out, and then the earlobe at the bottom of our ear will be in line with our nose here. And so does your person have big ears? Does your person have small ears? The top of the ear will go out further than the lobe of the ear, which will be closer to the face. And the same will go for the ear on the left. And so I'll give you just a second to create your ear. There's almost this S shape that happens with this portion here being in shadow. Also, ears are really hard to draw and to paint for me. They've been one of the things that I struggle with. Ears and hands.
Ears are so weird. I feel like I weirdly liked my picture and then I added the ears and I was like, who is this person?
Yes, it's a skill, and it's a skill that I have yet to master. But this is a safe space. This is a safe space for all of us. This is a space where we can all make mistakes, me included, right? And so as you draw your face, as you finish your ears, we're going to move up to the top portion of our person. So we're going to draw a line that goes right across the top of the head here. And this is going to become our hairline. And so for most people, the hairline will go out and then up slightly. Like if we're starting to create a trapezoid. Either ends will extend downward. And then we'll connect back to the side of the head. Hair is such an important part of our identity, right? Like how we wear our hair says so much about us. Not just about our gender and gender expression, but about our personality. Like, do we have pink hair? Do we have blue hair? Do we have short hair? Do we have a military style cut? Are we okay to be eccentric and explore and be edgy? And so this is where you get to decide what kind of person, what kind of hair you would like to put on your person. I tend to be a little bit boring, and my hair is just pointed up towards the front, as you saw. Looks kind of edgy when I haven't put in the rest of my hair, right? But you get to decide what kind of hair you would like to get your person. We're going to connect the rest of our hair to the edge of our head. Do we want our person to have long hair? Do we want our person to have short hair? Who is this person? Do we want our person to have facial hair?
I know that we have one big beard on the call, so do you have any recommendations for drawing facial hair, Edgar-Arturo?
I do, yeah. So I'll draw facial hair on my person as well. So it depends on how full the beard is, the mustache is. But it extends from the center of the nose. So if you're going to break down the right part of the nose and the left part of the nose, we want to find the center point, which is right here. So the center part on the right and the center part on the left. And so that is where our mustache will normally grow out towards the left. When drawing facial hair, we want to leave the lip line without facial hair, unless our beard or our mustache is very long. Otherwise, you want to leave a thin lip line that will help to define our lips. We also want to leave a little bit of lip space right on the bottom of our lips here before we complete our facial hair on the bottom. So for me, I have a little bit of facial hair that goes down towards the bottom here. And the way
And then
that
go ahead, sorry.
I was going to just say the way that we draw and create space in our composition is by shapes, creating shapes. It's not necessarily about drawing each individual hair. It is about creating these shapes, because then we can add small details that will bring the piece together afterwards.
That was literally my question I was going to ask. So I'm going to shut up.
So it's just important to get that shape right and not worry too much about getting each individual hair, but rather, what is the shape that this is creating, right? What shape are we creating here? And so once we have the shape, for example, here for my hairline, then I can start to just bring in each individual hair that will help tie this together. Once we have all of the pieces for our facial structure, we can start to erase the lines that we no longer need. This is also a really great opportunity to make any adjustments. Because remember, it's pretty rare when someone gets it right on the first try. So it's okay to go back and make whatever adjustments that you need. And just like that, we created a face, y'all. Isn't that beautiful?
That is so beautiful.
That's the way that I break down all of my dog is saying, y'all did an amazing job. This is how I break down all of the faces that I draw. I break them down with the circle and just start to edit, really paying attention to, is the person that I'm painting, are their eyes round? Are their eyes more almond shaped? What is the shape of their nose? What is the spacing between each of the brows? What is the spacing between the edge of their brow to the edge of their head? What shape does their brow make? All of these things will help me define and share the story about who I'm drawing, right? And then they also help me to define like the energy of the piece, right? And I think it's so important for gender fluid, gender non-conforming, non-binary folks, trans folks to also have these tools about defining masculine and feminine features so that they are able to draw themselves and paint themselves the way that they want to be seen, right? The way that they want to be, to tell their stories. And I think that's so important. And so as we're finishing up, feel free to continue to work on your face that you're creating. But if anyone wants to unmute and share, you're welcome to, about your experience. How did this make you feel? Was it hard? Was it something that you're comfortable with? Was it what you expected? Yeah.
I can be the brave person to go first. When I'll go ahead and share my drawing too, which I feel like I just turned into like an elf, like very femme round version of myself. I added on some poof ball earrings. But I really like how kind of like round, I feel like I tend to skew towards more round drawings for like comics and images that I like. So definitely like a lot of roundness and everything that I brought together today. A little too round, and I feel like it does skew a little like elf or magical creature, which I'm not mad at. I'm not mad at it.
It looks great, and I love how
like my hair wrong. It was the wrong direction, but it's close, right?
It looks great. I love how close your nose is to your lips, and it brings in like this very like fairy whimsical element. It looks beautiful. Kevin.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Edgar-Arturo.
And if folks don't want to share their drawing, it's okay.
Mine came out.
Go ahead.
Oh, you please, you. Okay, well, mine came out looking like Dr. Xavier or an X-Man.
It looks great.
That's great, yeah.
So while we were talking initially, I was doing a self-portrait, and then with the guidance that you gave, the face looks much more proportional. So I really liked the exercise, and there were some good tips in there too, like put a little shading in here, because I don't normally deal with shading because I'm not that good at it. But anyway, and I have a monkey up here too.
Beautiful. Thanks for sharing, Jeff. It looks great.
And I made him blue.
Alan, did you want to share?
I did a bald version of myself.
Nice.
And yeah, it was really fun doing the eyes, and thank you for the guidance on the hair. And it made me look at my face in new ways. And yeah, so it's fun.
Beautiful. It looks like you are an artist, Alan, or that you have experience drawing.
You just have very good instruction.
Thank you.
I'll share. I don't know if you can see this. Oh, I think you can't see it because my background is blurred. But I'll just talk about my experience. It was when I'm drawing, I usually draw the features first to help me get the shape of the face correctly. So this was kind of the opposite way, and it was pretty interesting to do it this way in a way that I don't normally do.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And then also, like, thank you for sharing your process too. Know that this is just one way to get to this end result, and take what works, and then also, recycle what doesn't, because your process is your process, and what works for you is perfect. And if anyone else would like to share, you're welcome to. But remember that passive participation is participation. So I just appreciate you all being here. Cool.
As someone who identifies a lot of times as a perfectionist, I'm a double Virgo, and it can especially come out in drawing where like the paper will just be ruined because I've drawn and redrawn and erased it so many times. I really appreciated the focus on like just getting it down and continuing to solidify in the process, that it doesn't need to be perfect, but just the steps towards it. Yes, Virgo power, Dominic, but just the steps towards like, as long as you're getting closer to it, like the focus away from perfection and more towards affirmation, I just really appreciate it. So just wanted to call that out, Edgar-Arturo.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think that's a beautiful reminder. As a perfectionist myself, I also sometimes want to focus on the details before I get like general shape. And I think that there's beauty in imperfection, and my partner always has to remind me that there's beauty in imperfection and that it's okay. And I think that drawing is something that for me parallels my journey with gender, and that it's about the process, it's about the journey. It's not about how I get. It's about like keep going, keep moving forward, and it's about the journey and how I get there, not necessarily that destination. So,
which I feel like is such a good, just overall, metaphor for life, where it's just like you could be going to the best place, but if you're not having a good time getting there, and I think you were speaking about that with your own journey with masculinity, where you're like, I was going there, and then I was like, I don't know if I actually want to go here. Like, if this is what it takes to get there, I'm not sure I like the journey. So just, love that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I liked the guidance you gave too on softening features or drawing them in a particular way to accent a masculine or a feminine construct, because that that gives you some a way of drawing yourself and being more plastic with your face, and with that your identity. So
thank you. I really appreciate that, Jeff.
It's like I want to put eyeshadow on mine now.
I think you should. Alan, did you get into your markers? I want to know if you got into those markers and what color you're coloring that mustache in too.
I brought my glitter pens just in case.
Oh, glitter pens. Yes, please. Edgar, can you talk a little bit about like kind of the shading that you're doing now, and thinking about, because as a queen that paints their face, I know that a lot of times, especially in the forehead area, I try to create round shapes around here to give it that sense of roundness. So can you tell us maybe of like, how can we further keep shading this to give a sense of those features that we want?
Definitely, yeah. So there will typically, depends on the light and where it comes from. So basically, I'm going to do just the front facing light. And so there will be a highlight here. And to create some roundness in the face, I always like to think of these as horns. There will be some shading that will happen here. And mine's a little dramatic. It's a little.
It's okay. You can be dramatic here. This is a space you can be dramatic, Edgar-Arturo.
Perfect. And so creating this shape here will bring some roundness to the face. I'm just spreading my graphite here. There will also be a shadow that comes right underneath the eye here. And there will be a highlight on the cheek on both sides here. And that will help to create some of the roundness in the face. So a way that I will create some of the highlights just by erasing some of my graphite here. And I encourage you to just stand in front of a light, look in the mirror, and then see where some of the creases in your face are. See where some of those shadows are. There's no better thing than drawing from life. It helps you catch some of the nuances that are missed in photographs. Thank you, Jesus, for joining, for coming. And so really, you get to spend the time that you want to spend with this drawing, with this person, honoring this story. And I think that that's the powerful thing for me with storytelling, or with visual storytelling, is that you get to spend the time that you need to spend with yourself, with this narrative, to be able to share it with the world, to honor it in the way that you want to honor it, right? Typically, there will be a highlight that also comes right up the nose.
I feel like now I just want to keep spending time doing exactly what you're doing. It's like adding all those little details in, just adding more and more shading and dimension and structure to this.
Yeah.
Which we can keep doing when we're talking, but I do have some things that I want to close this out with. So I'm just going to get started on that, which isn't to say that we're done, that you have to finish up, but just that there's a couple of things that I have to get to for the end of the day today. And so that is, let's see, where are my notes? Here they are. Nope, not that was the wrong one. I lied. There it is. Okay, great. Thank you all for joining us today. Again, this workshop was hosted by an organization called Diamond Wave. We are a queer arts organization based in San Francisco. We are also fiscally sponsored by Intersection for the Arts. So if you're interested in supporting us with a donation today, and donations of any amount can be made via our fiscal sponsor, Intersection for the Arts, at the link that I'm putting into the chat right now. There we go. That should work. Bit.ly, give to Diamond Wave. And also, if you're on Patreon, we have just started a Patreon page. We've got about 5 folks There you can start with as low as $3 a month to support Diamond Wave to do more of these masculineous workshops. We also host an annual non-binary performance festival, and then we operate a grant program called the Artist Adaptability Circles, which is intended to build on existing trust and relationships to help put artists back to work following COVID pandemic. So those are some of the things that we do. One thing that I really am going to make a plug for everybody to do, because we got funding from California Humanities, and so we need to try to turn in some survey data, is that there's a form that I'm putting into the chat now. If you can just take a second, and I'll follow up with an email as well if you can't get to it right now, but if you can just follow up and let us know how we did today. This information also just helps inform California Humanities about who is in their audience, who's coming to the events, and how y'all liked some of the things that they funded this year. So that's all of that stuff. I'm going to give just more information. I'm going to keep it coming as we're closing out. We have a Facebook group. It's not super active, but if you want updates for this workshop series, that is one place you can get it. And then I want to let you know that the next meeting that we have coming up, I just started solidifying details for that, but I'm so excited that we're going to be working with Nick Ishimaru, who is going to be doing a 90-minute creative workshop exploring No, Kabuki, and Buto movement in relation to gender expression. This will be our first in-person workshop. So I'm sorry, folks that are joining from far away. I'm not sure if we'll be able to get you zoomed into that room for this in-person workshop, but that is happening on March 15th at Brava Theater in San Francisco's Mission District. There's a link to that one. And again, I'll follow up with links to the Facebook group, to the survey, to our next event, and an email. Thanking you all for coming tonight. We've got about 5 minutes left. Edgar-Arturo, is there anything else that you wanted to say or share?
I just wanted to say thank you all for the beautiful and warm welcome, and for joining me on this journey today. I appreciate y'all.
And any of our participants, anything else that y'all want to share? Anyone that hasn't spoken yet that might want to share your image or just any thoughts with us, either in the chat or vocally, feel free to log on. It's your time. He's so quiet and relaxed after this meditative drawing. Okay, great. We will put this recording onto our YouTube channel. So that is, I believe, actually, we don't have a custom URL yet because we don't have enough subscribers, but I will send a link to our YouTube channel in the follow-up as well. So I will send you let's see, I'm going to write down all the links I got to send to you now. Otherwise, I will absolutely forget it. I'm going to send you links to the Facebook group, the survey, the YouTube, and the next workshop. And if there's anything else, you'll get an email from me. So feel free to email me back. I'm kevin@diamond-wave.org. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook. We're Diamond Wave Arts on both of those to keep up to date with updates. All right, well, we're just going to keep listening to some mellow jams as folks exit, and keep those drawings together. Feel free to stick around if you have any other questions for Edgar-Arturo. We'll continue to be here. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us today at this MASCellaneous workshop presented by Diamond Wave.
Thank you.
Thank you, Enzo.
Just wanted to show you, I did put eyeshadow on.
Oh, yes. I love that. I feel like it's giving me like a drag apocalypse from X-Men.
And I also put those, I guess it was marigold petals in one of your paintings. I just found those really beautiful and intriguing, so I gave him earrings made out of them. So that's your signature.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jeff. Have a great rest of your night.